out of Ukraine, Victoria Nuland, who has overseen effectively America's strategy in Ukraine and with regards to Russia for more than 10 years, you would argue, is stepping down, signaling, we can put this element up, signaling a likely strategic shift coming forward. If we could put up this second element here, this is a post on Twitter that was going around. I think not terribly unfair. The guy wrote, "Big news, likely signaling a major policy shift. Nuland has run point on our Russia-Europe policy ever since we helped engineer the Maidan coup d'etat. The results after 10 years are in. Ukraine is destroyed and has permanently lost Crimea and its main industrial region. Europe deindustrializing. Russia permanently alienated and tighter than ever with China, India, and Iran. Much of the world refused to isolate Russia and suffered no consequences. Institutions central to U.S. dollar hegemony, no longer viewed as neutral. Nord Stream, we're going to talk about this later when we get to the Houthis and the cables, the fiber optic cables. Nord Stream broke the seal on sabotaging international infrastructure. Russian military capabilities significantly increased, not decreased. Countries like Iran, North Korea, etc., have seen that short of total war, NATO conventional capabilities are quite limited." She writes, Nuland is one of those undead creatures in Washington who has only ever failed upward, so her resignation probably indicates her usefulness has finally run out. This is one of those posts where you look at it, you're like, no lies detected.
Basically. And, Ryan, I don't know if this was a Freudian slip, but I thought it was really funny when you opened this block. You said big news out of Ukraine when technically it really is big news out of Ukraine, though she is a U.S. Diplomat. There's a quote here from Secretary of State Tony Blinken who said, "It's Toria's leadership on Ukraine that diplomats and students of foreign policy will study for years to come." This is what he said in a written statement. No lies detected there either. Her efforts have been indispensable to confronting Putin's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, marshaling a global coalition to ensure his strategic failure. Now, that's where the lies are sort of starting to be detected, but it's absolutely true that she will be studied for years to come. And I would also just add to this, Ryan, I think Tony Blinken and Jake Sullivan, Joe Biden himself, remember, who was point man on Ukraine for the Obama administration and obviously had different family ties through Hunter to the Ukrainian economy, although I'll set that aside for the moment because I don't even think it matters entirely in this context, because I think Joe Biden would be utterly committed to Ukraine and to Zelensky and to their sort of goal to remain as a bulwark against Putinism as they see it, no matter what. And there is the reading of this as a seismic shift that I genuinely wonder about because, for example, Jake Sullivan, Joe Biden, and Tony Blinken are still running policy.
And it's rare that a diplomat can become so influential that she becomes kind of like a figure and a power center in her own right. And Nuland did that with regard to Ukraine, Europe, and Russia. Brett McGurk is getting there. When it comes to kind of Mideast policy. We'll see if he survives this particular moment. Don Liu, a State Department official in South Asia, if he has another 5-10 years as he's been doing there ineffectively, but effectively for American imperial interests, he could rise to the level of a Nuland, but she is kind of in a league of her own, and in something that does not bode necessarily well for Ukrainians who are hoping that the American policy is going to stay the course. Put up this next element here. So, this is from the Associated Press. It says Nuland will be replaced temporarily as undersecretary by another career diplomat, John Bass, a former ambassador to Afghanistan who oversaw the U.S. withdrawal from the country.
Everything's fine.
Yeah, right, yes.
You're in good hands.
Right, it's like you work at a major corporation and they introduce these new consultants who are going to help us right-size the place. And they're going to be meeting with each of you for 15 minutes, and it's just going to pop up on your calendar, and don't worry about it.
Don't worry.
Yeah, it's going to be fine.
Big, the huge vibes with that comparison here. I actually want to skip ahead to our last element. This is C5 because I think this is from the All In podcast. It's David Sachs talking about Victoria Nuland. And I think this is super relevant and well put. He actually, you're going to hear him compare Nuland to being what Fauci was to COVID, to Ukraine. And his co-hosts are sort of laughing and enjoying this. And it is amusing, but I think it's amusing because it's a really good way to look at it. Let's roll C5 here.
Nuland is the Fauci of this situation, okay? The same way that Fauci was supposed to be protecting us from viruses and then funded gain-of-function research. Victoria Nuland.
Now we got a label.
Let me tell you something.
Victoria COVID-19 misinformation.
Victoria Nuland was supposed to be our chief diplomat with respect to Russia and Eastern Europe. And what did she do instead? She ginned up this conflict. How?
Ginned up.
We backed an insurrection in Ukraine in 2014. Jason, if you didn't like the insurrection of January 6th, let me tell you, you aren't going to like the insurrection that she staged in Ukraine because they brought in these Ukrainian far-right nationalists as the muscle. She was the State Department official who was responsible for backing this insurrection of a democratically elected leader in Ukraine in 2014 named Yanukovych, okay?
Yeah, and you know what? It's really actually pretty hard in America to talk about the Maidan uprising accurately and honestly without sounding like a lunatic.
Yes, yeah.
And so, for instance, we're going to play a documentary that like gets into Nuland's role and the role of John McCain and Chris Murphy in this as well. Like she showed up and started handing out basically baked goods symbolically in a gesture that was covered a lot by Western media. In the Maidan Square to show
CIA brownies.
Yeah, show U.S. support for this operation. And why I say it's very hard to talk about it honestly without sounding like a total crank is because there was a massacre in the Maidan Square that led to the far right basically taking over. There were then allegations that it was a false flag, that it was actually the far right themselves that opened fire on Maidan protesters in order to instigate this entire thing. There was then a huge internal investigation done by the subsequent Ukrainian governments, and that investigation has never been published. Like it's completed, and we just don't have it. Very serious, credible people who have looked very closely at this do not dismiss that out of hand. And the far right figures, the most far right figures who were involved in that uprising hijacked the entire thing, and with direct kind of neo-Nazi connections went right into the government that Victoria Nuland helped to facilitate. So let's roll a little bit of the history of that moment.
And this, by the way, is from Oliver Stone's documentary, which I really recommend.
And like I said, everybody thinks Oliver Stone's a crank, but this is based on like actual history. Like these things really happened. You can hate Oliver Stone, you can think he's a crank, but this is what happened. It's
called The Ukraine on Fire. It was released in 2016. And so here he's actually talking to Viktor Yanukovych, who David Sachs obviously just mentioned.
That was intercepted. It was a call between the Assistant Secretary of State for European Affairs, Victoria Nuland, and the U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, Jeffrey Pyatt.
Questions of credibility are being raised after a private chat between two top U.S. diplomats was leaked online.
I think Yats is the guy who's got the economic experience, the governing experience. He's the guy, what he needs is Klitsch and Tony Book on the outside. I just think Klitsch going in, he's going to be at that level working for Yatsenyuk. It's just not going to work.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Okay. Good. Well, do you want us to try to set up a call with him as the next step?
Sullivan's come back to me VFR saying you need Biden, and I said probably tomorrow for an attaboy and to get the deets to stick. So okay. Biden's willing.
So you had this remarkable phone call where you have these two senior officials of the U.S. government apparently talking about a coup or how they were planning to restructure the government of Ukraine.